World Champion is, without question, the most distinguishing title in the sport of disc golf. If you've been around the game, tell me this. What pops into your head when you hear the phrase 5-time or 12-time? An outsider might think of numbers or multiplication or something, but the disc golfer, they think of people, of titans. And this weekend, a weekend that fans of our sport like me have been desperately waiting on, a new world champion will be crowned. I mean, if you're not excited, then I don't know what else to tell you at this point. I'm Mason with Heiserfly, and thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're at an incredibly interesting crossroads in disc golf coming into the 2022 World Championships, where things are really evolving and they're shifting, but at the same time, I cannot shake some of the old truths of our game. Stick with me here real quick, let me explain. So we're currently looking at the last 30 years of MPO World Championships. This number on the left represents world championships won by players that have only done it once, while this number on the right is world titles by players that have done it more than once. Simple enough, right? Well, first off, these numbers are kind of staggering and just show how dominant someone like Ken Climo was in the 90s and early 2000s. Okay, well, let's take away some of those. Let's go back just 20 years instead, and the proportions don't change too much. All right, well, let's just look at the last 10 years and still similar numbers. So if we're following these statistics roughly, that would mean that the world champion this year has something like an 80% chance of being one of these 5 guys who are all former world champions that are registered to play. But that doesn't seem right, does it? How could it be an 80% chance for these 5 when the field is full of disc golf monsters like Eagle and Simon and Gannon and Dickerson and Calvin, and I could go on. The point is, things are changing. There's not just a small handful of players dominating the field, but a sea full of sharks hunting trophies every single tournament. And this year's World Championship sits right at this crossroads in time. But the thing that I can't shake is the feeling that Paul McBeth and Ricky Wysocki are probably the front runners. Tournaments like Worlds are where they constantly affirm their greatness, and then that 80% number doesn't start to seem so crazy anymore. I don't know. It is a great time to be a disc golf fan. So let's talk about Emporia, Kansas. In trying to figure out who has the best chances of being crowned world champion, you have to look at the courses, which I think are heavily indicative of who will do well, who stylistically suits them. One little thing to mention right off the bat is that when people think of Kansas disc golf, they think of this. But as someone from the plains, I have to say that the wind will, fingers crossed, not be as bad as at DDO. You have to remember that the Dynamic Disc Open takes place every year in April, which is one of the windiest months and one of the windiest states. But in the late summer and the early fall, there is a significant drop in average wind speed on the central and southern plains. It will make a difference, and I honestly wish that DDO was played in the late summer every year anyway. Now, as far as the courses themselves, while I think that in some ways they are aesthetically lacking, with the wind hopefully down, I think that these courses will play much closer to fair than they did at DDO this year. I think that Jones Supreme is the best version of disc golf played yet at Jones Park. This course, while it isn't picturesque, it is challenging in the right ways. One thing that's really interesting about this year's Worlds is that both courses are stylistically similar. Last year, and in many previous years, the two courses played at Worlds could not be further from each other in terms of open versus woods disc golf. Where in Emporia, the emphasis lies in placement off the tee, avoiding out of bounds on both of the courses. This can give us some crucial information about the types of players that will do well. I think that disc golfers that we know more as woods specialists will struggle in Emporia, while accurate, big throwers will often overperform. It's all about getting off the tee clean and staying away from the OB this year. The strokes gained tee to green statistic is so important, like it or not. That is the recipe for a 2022 World Championship. So let's look at the past. Let's see who's done well in Emporia recently. The last 5 years of the Dynamic Disc Open, formerly known as the Glass Blown Open, have given us 3 names that you might be somewhat familiar with. In 2018, Eagle McMahon won the Glass Blown Open, part of his breakout 3-win season. In 2019, 2020, and in 2021, Paul McBeth was your DDO champion. And as we know, this year, Ricky Wysocki took it down. But there are some interesting threads among these tournaments. Obviously, Paul McBeth is to be feared in Emporia. But if you look at these wins over the last 5 years, it does undersell what Ricky is truly capable of on these courses. Because in 2 out of these 5 years, he finished as runner-up, just 1 stroke off of the leader. And don't forget the last time Worlds took place in Emporia in 2016, where Ricky took home his first World Championship. That 80% number from earlier is looking bigger and bigger. And the last thing to point out is the strokes gained tee to green statistic, like I mentioned earlier. In all 5 of these years, your winner averaged no less than 15 strokes gained on the field from the tee to the green. As important as putting is, drive for show and putt for dough is a myth in places like Emporia. So let's talk predictions. As much as I say in every video that anyone can win at any time because of the strength of the field, Worlds is slightly different. This isn't your 3-round Elite Series, this is your 5-round grind for the title. The pressure tighter and more present than ever, the stakes unmatched. We see it every World Championship, the cream always rises to the top. So, I'd like to make the case for a few players that I think have genuine chances of chasing glory this year in 2022. After I lay this out, I'd like to know who you think has the most convincing case. So we'll start with Eagle McMahon. The last event that Eagle played resulted in the highest event rating in disc golf major history. Is there anything else that even needs to be said? Eagle looked stellar in the European Open, and if he continues at the pace he left off, I don't know how you wouldn't put him in contention here. I will say though, I think that the lack of forehand will be more penalizing here than in Europe. As much as his left-handed throws are cool to watch, I think people are overrating how serviceable they are as a replacement for his forehand, one of the deadliest tools that Eagle ever had. But in Finland, he proved us wrong, round after incredible round. Plus, Eagle won the Glass Blown Open in 2018. He knows how to win in Emporia, and forehand or not, I think these courses suit his strengths well. Next is none other than Calvin Heimberg. Do not sleep on Calvin in your Worlds predictions this year. He has 2 Elite Series wins already this season, both of them on long tee to green style courses, and he undoubtedly has the shot shaping skills to thrive in Emporia. Calvin's gotten more experience in high-pressure situations this year, with both of his wins happening via playoff. He's proved that he can do well in Kansas too, finishing in 2nd place at the 2021 DDO. I would not be surprised to see Calvin in the hunt for his first world title. I have to also talk about Simon Lizotte. I discussed him quite a bit in my previous video, but I don't know how I couldn't include him in this list with the performance he's had this season. As if the back-to-back Elite Series wins weren't enough, he showed last week that those 2 wins weren't just a hot streak by winning the Des Moines Challenge in an explosive playoff. Don't forget, earlier this year at DDO on the final round in terrible conditions, Simon shot the hottest round of the day to finish the tournament in 2nd place. Much like Eagle, I think these courses suit Simon well with his controlled power approach to the game. Of course, there is a massive case to be made for Ricky Wysocki heading into the 2022 World Championship. Ignore his previous successes in Emporia, ignore his 2 World Championships, ignore the fact that it's his sponsor's home course, ignore all of these factors. Ricky is still playing some of the best disc golf in the world this year. 3 Elite Series titles under his belt and several podium finish. There's no one more poised to take it down. Add in those factors I mentioned earlier, and he might even be the favorite. And lastly, my personal pick for the 2022 world title, the new 6-time Paul McBeth. Listen, predictions are predictions. I could be wrong, but after looking at all the cases to be made, I think that Paul's might be the strongest. He won DDO 3 years in a row, consistently dominating the field in Emporia. He knows how to do it. He shows up to a major seemingly in a different frame of mind. And I think that Paul McBeth has a bit of a chip on his shoulder this year. He's had so many tournaments where he's put up the hottest round of the day in round 1 or round 2, but seems unable to close it out in the crunch time of the final round. His heartbreaking loss despite playing impeccable disc golf in Finland. This is not like Paul McBeth. So either we're believing that Paul has somewhat lost his killer instinct, or that there is a sleeping giant heading into Worlds. I could be wrong, but I just have a feeling it could be the latter. One minor thing from a more technical argument is the foliage in Kansas is more filled out this time of year. There's a lot of touchy shots that have to go under really low ceilings on both courses, and I think that Paul McBeth along with Calvin Heimberg are specialists at navigating these types of shots. We'll see. Is there someone else that you think has an argument to be made? Let me know in the comments. I could easily see Gannon Buhr or Chris Dickerson or Kyle Klein or even James Conrad make a run for the title, but for one reason or another, I don't think they're quite on the same tier as those listed previously, at least for Worlds. But who knows, I could be dead wrong. Personally, I don't care who takes home the World Championship because whoever does will have earned it. They'll have fought against the wind and the OB and the heat and the 5-round grind and the pressure and the nerves, and they'll not have stumbled across the finish line but rightfully taken their place as your disc golf world champion. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next one.